Hello there. Welcome to Effective Mind Control. Think of this. You can identify one of the millions of images you have seen in just half a second. Could you have done that if such images were not stored in your memory? Could you have spotted them, without recognizing them? Where are such images stored? How are they recognized? Science lacks even a hypothesis about this mystery. But for science, combinatorial memories can be infinite. Elimination algorithms identify patterns in such memories in milliseconds. For Abraham Thomas, an engineer, intuition is such pattern recognition. Every act of the human mind results from pattern recognition. Human creativity depends on it. Human genius derives from it. Consciousness is powered by it. Fear and anger are unleashed by it. Without intuitive pattern recognition, there would be no civilization. Only stones and ice would exist today. Is intuitive pattern recognition meaningless? Sigmund Freud's major contribution to neuroscience was the recognition of subconscious pattern recognition. He suggested that neurotic behaviors were the result of the activities of the id, ego and superego, conflicting drives, within the brain. Such behaviors were to be curbed by identifying the complex defense mechanisms which suppress the errant memories in an unconscious mind. Since normal perception is that an unconscious mind does not respond to stimuli, this video describes the nerve cell pattern recognition processes occurring beneath conscious awareness as subconscious events. Freud's theories formed the foundation for psychoanalysis, the clinical method for treating psychopathology through dialogue between a patient and a psychoanalyst. But Freud's dreams and free associations relied too much on ambiguous data. They failed to yield reliable standards for treatment. While psychoanalysis has become a major field of therapy, the main benefit of Freud's thoughts was the idea of hidden conflicts within the brain. According to Freud, the three parts of an unconscious mind consisted of an id, an instinctual drive, an ego, a realistic intelligence, and superego, a social/inner moral sense. According to his theory, transference neuroses correspond to a conflict between the ego and the id, narcissistic neuroses to a conflict between the ego and the superego, and psychoses to one between the ego and the external world. Living in a sexually bottled up society, Freud saw the id, desiring the satisfaction of sex, as the most fundamental instinctual drive. It contained the libido, with drives present from birth. At the deepest level of the unconscious, it ruled, in a dark inaccessible part of the personality, in a cauldron, seething with energy and excitations. It sought the satisfaction of instinctual needs, unresponsive to the demands of reality. It guided people to act, without discretion, to meet immediate desires. The id was like a child, an alimentary tract, with no sense of responsibility, at either end. The id included an instinct of destruction. This death instinct sought to lead organic life back to its inanimate state. His pleasure principle included a drive to avoid pain or unpleasure through the arousal of instinctual tension. Freud presents the ego as a part of the id, modified by contact with the external world. Ego mediates between instinctual responses and extreme social demands. It is a mental agent, mediating among three contending forces: the outside demands of social pressure, or reality, libidinal demands for immediate satisfaction, arising from the id, and the moral demands of the superego. Originally, Freud used the word ego to mean a sense of self, but later revised it to mean a set of behaviors, including judgment, tolerance, reality testing, control, planning, defense, synthesis of information, intellectual functioning, and memory. Freud considered the ego to constitute the major part of consciousness. Conflicts between the id, the ego, and the superego formed crucial factors in the development of neuroses. The ego mediated between the id and reality by cloaking its demands with the preconscious rationalizations of the ego. As against Freud's views, the brilliant experiments of Benjamin Libet linked the mystery of consciousness to measurable human responses. He discovered that conscious awareness occurred 350 milliseconds after subconscious motor neuron activity. Freud's picture of the unconscious does not describe concealed pattern recognition. Freud divided the mind into conscious, preconscious, and unconscious elements. The conscious contained events that we were aware of. The preconscious contained events that were in the process of becoming conscious. The unconscious had events that we were not aware of. Later he concluded that conscious events and repressed and unconscious events did not coincide. Freud named this chaotic and conflicting unconscious region the id. In addition, conscious awareness resides in the ego, although not all of the operations of the ego are conscious. Although the id is unconscious, by definition, the ego and the superego are both partly conscious and partly unconscious. Freud's divisions of conscious, preconscious, and unconscious confuse the facts. But Libet's experiments showed that consciousness is only aware of the outcome of a few, among the many, intuitive pattern recognition processes operating well below conscious levels. For Freud, the superego was a domineering parental drive, which compelled the ego of a person to act according to his own conscience. Appropriate social behavior was initiated by suppressed sex-related anger, guilt, and fear. Repression of sexual desire developed a superego, which punished inappropriate behavior with guilt. Repression developed a sense of what was right and wrong. For Freud, the conscious identification of repressed memories was the foundation for psychoanalytic therapy. In A Dog's Search for Repressed Memories, Freud gave each child the Oedipus complex, a desire to sexually possess the parent of the opposite sex. The idea that individual acts of honor, justice, and compassion are generated by repression by the superego devalues the nobility of the human mind. Since many human conflicts originate in the first years of a person's life, Freud drew examples from a narrow group of upper-class Austrian women living in a sexually repressed society. Freud's psychoanalysis required frequent sessions with a client over a period of years to uncover the problem. According to him, the patient's mind was endeavoring to hide the underlying problem through myriad defense mechanisms. The psychiatrist had to distinguish between them. They included repression, forgetfulness, reaction formation, regression, displacement, and rationalization, denial, displacement, intellectualization, fantasy, compensation, projection, reaction formation, regression, repression, and sublimation, which acted to protect the conscious mind from an unacceptable reality. Freud's daughter Anna Freud added more mechanisms, including undoing, suppression, dissociation, idealization, identification, introjection, inversion, somatization, splitting, and substitution. These words sought to categorize the numerous abnormal mental situations created by intuitive pattern recognition. Unlike Freud's narrow focus on repressed memories as the basis for emotional turmoil, history has proved that psychological problems originate from the conflicting demands of numerous intelligent brain regions developed during various stages of evolution. In the first stage, pattern recognition of direct stimuli triggered the reflexive reactions of the reptilian brain. In the second stage, complex behavioral responses were triggered by emotions in the mammalian brain, including anger, fear, sadness, disgust, contempt, curiosity, surprise, love, pleasure, embarrassment, guilt, and shame. While Freud visualized a seething cauldron of the unconscious, the subconscious nervous system actually consists of these competing emotional drives. Pattern recognition of emotions triggered complex motor responses, including care and protection of the weak and the aged. In the third human stage, appeared the purely rational prefrontal regions, which generated behaviors that created power stations and satellites. Abraham Thomas suggests that the intuition algorithm uses inductive logic on the infinitely large memories stored in the 86 billion neurons in the brain to yield survival answers within half a second. Sadly, intuition always focuses the control of the system to a single emotion by inhibiting other irrelevant emotional impulses. This was nature's imperative for survival. An escaping animal should not be evaluating the option of staying back to fight death. When the urge to eat grass is selected, the option to drink had to be inhibited. Freud regards the neurotic behaviors triggered by intuitive inhibition as being caused by the repression of suppressed memories. Freud's description of the id as the principal drive, focused on sexual gratification, has been overtaken by many neuroscience discoveries. The amygdala was discovered to provide one of the most powerful drives within the nervous system. During the early beginnings of life, nature developed the amygdala as a defense response mechanism for animals. Intuitively recognizing danger patterns in the potential for pain, the organs enabled animals to fight, freeze, or escape. As essential as the vertebrae, these organs protected fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals from harm. In reality, angry, destructive, or fearful drives from the amygdala dominate the system, seeking self-protection through the early detection of the potential for physical or social pain. Freud focused on the superego as compelling proper social behavior through guilt. Nature, in its massively evolved wisdom, created the conditions for herds of animals to live in peace and harmony. Pattern recognition by the mirror neuron system, MNS, gave an animal inner awareness of the experiences and the pain of its neighbor. The MNS built love and compassion into the nature of the herd. Only the failure of the MNS caused a lack of empathy and psychopathic behaviors. The insular cortex triggered pain for a variety of emotions. Comparison drives triggered the pain of envy and jealousy. Failure to meet social norms triggered the pain of guilt. In response to pain, the amygdala set off pain avoidance activities. People don't behave appropriately because they hear the strictures of their parents. Their behaviors occur because they internally sense the needs of the society they live in. Good behavior is not the result of censorship or repression by a superego, but by the pattern recognition, which balances social needs against personal needs through the evaluation of millions of years of evolutionary memories. In the meanwhile, beyond Austria, enlightened thinkers sought to free mankind from emotional turmoil. These processes had little to do with the revelation of suppressed memories. The stilling of emotions through meditation, yoga and breath control handed over controls to the prefrontal, or to higher-level emotional regions in the insular cortex. This enabled reason, or love and compassion, to take control of the mind. Mindfulness courses improved the performance of novice meditators on tasks requiring sustained attention and working memory. They were less depressed than those who did not receive such training. As a prisoner in the Nazi concentration camps, the famed psychiatrist, Frankl, learned that discovering a purpose in life, however simple, was the key to survival in an unbearably cruel world. After the war, he assisted thousands of suicidal patients around the world to recover by discovering an acceptable purpose in life. By and large, Freud's concept of subconscious mental activity and the approach of psychoanalysis have contributed significantly to reduce human emotional turmoil. Thank you very much for watching this effective mind control video. When you view the brain as a pattern recognition machine, many ancient mysteries vanish. Do come back to this channel. See you next time.